Welcome back to the JB podcast. Yeah, Micah Parsons was just traded. Another Jerry Jones disaster. And the Yankees coming up. I was actually on the way to my brother's football game last night when the breaking news happened of Micah Parsons being traded to the Green Bay Packers. And, a lot of people were obviously shocked about this. And I was surprised to see it, of course, but it's one of those things where it's surprising, but it's not surprising. If you are aware of the history of Jerry Jones, in fact, if you're watching that Cowboys documentary now on Netflix, I was watching the episode where he was dealing with the Emmett Smith negotiations, and kind of similar thing here, only this time he actually pulled the trigger for a Micah Parsons deal. And the thing is Micah Parsons is now getting paid a $188 million 4-year contract, I believe, and the Packers have signed him to that contract, and he is now the highest paid non-quarterback position in football. Now, he deserves it. I mean, let's face it, Michael Parsons has been excellent since he's came into the league, and he's one of the best players in the league. He was the best player on the Dallas Cowboys. But what the Cowboys are saying is, listen, our defense wasn't good last year, and it doesn't really make sense for us. I'm not defending them. I'm just saying this is what they're thinking. It doesn't really make sense for us to give all this money to somebody when our defense still stinks with him playing. So they don't make this move. They are like, all right, we're better off trading him. My retort to that is that Michael Parsons is the best defensive end in football. And it's really rare that you get guys like him. I mean, seriously, it's just rare to get him. In fact, Jerry Jones's comments made me laugh hysterically because it was like, hey, these draft picks that we got could be used to get other players, whether it's trade or draft. Yeah, maybe someone like Micah Parsons. You drafted a guy in Micah Parsons who turned out to be awesome at his position, has the potential to be an all-time great, and you let him walk. So you most certainly, odds are, you're going to bring in a player worse than that, in which, what is the point? And a Cowboy fan has seen the Jerry Jones soap opera so many times. He's reaching his 80s, right? He's in his 80s. And it's like, hey, this could be the last legacy style move for Jerry Jones. And if you ask me, I don't think it's a good one. I think it just also makes it funnier that the Green Bay Packers were the last team the Cowboys faced in the playoffs and upset them and embarrassed them on national television in the playoffs after the Cowboys had an excellent season. It was very interesting to see that that was the team that they decided to trade Micah Parsons to. Now, I'm somebody that's like, hey, the offer is the offer, right? I said this with the Nets and the Knicks and the Mikal Bridges deal. If that's the best offer, you make the deal. And in my opinion, the Nets did that with Mikal Bridges, even though you're trading him to your arch rival, to the Knicks, whatever. It's petty stuff. If that's the best move, it's the best move. It just didn't feel like, it just felt like they could have got more from Michael Parsons. That's what it felt like. And he fits such a crucial need for Green Bay, who now sees himself as a Super Bowl contender. And I agree. Not sure who I'm picking out of the NFC yet. I have a few days to really kind of think that over. I mean, you got Philadelphia there. I think you got, obviously Detroit is going to still be in the mix, but I think Green Bay has the potential to win that division and be the best team in that division. And I said this before Micah Parsons got there. So now that they have him, it makes them even more better because their offense is probably going to be top 10 again with LaFleur and that coaching staff. And Jordan Love, odds are, probably getting a healthier season this year, even though they did well without him. I just, from a Cowboys standpoint, I think the Cowboys kind of were seeing the writing on the wall a little bit. I mean, to be honest, I don't really know. All I know is if you look at the NFC East, I I didn't have a lot of confidence in the Cowboys going into the season anyway. And even with a healthy Dak season, I don't know what their coaching situation is like. But again, I'm not in the organization. This is just me making that decision from an outside perspective. I think Jerry Jones, not I think, I know just from his comments, thinks he and the team got better from this move. I just disagree. I think the defense is going to stink. They have a good offense, probably with Dak, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. That's a trio similar to the Bengals, been said a million times by the people, but it's a very similar vibe to that. So they're going to be an exciting. They're not going to be a boring team. I mean, the Cowboys are never really boring, but even on paper, the talent, they're not a boring, sorry team. But I think you can make a good argument they are the worst team in this division, especially with how good the Giants' vibes have looked recently. The fact that Dable and Shane felt more urgency in the summer. It looks like they had a dramatic direction changing draft, which, is important. It's just that schedule is really difficult. But the Cowboys didn't have a lot to really look forward to. Obviously, they have the new coach. We have no idea what's going to be the case with that. And honestly, the Commanders, we'll see. I think they take a step back this year. But the Eagles, you think Dallas is going to really overtake and really challenge the Eagles this year? I'm sure the most optimistic Dallas Cowboy fan believes that, but I don't think so. And I think a lot of NFL experts also don't think so. So, Jerry Jones thinks he got better. I mean, Dallas is not a Super Bowl contender. So then you can't say, well, they didn't pay Michael Parsons because they're not a Super Bowl contender, but also say they got better. You can't say that. They got worse. And if it were up to me, if you have a player that's that elite, just bring him back. Now, I said this about, I may be sounding a little bit hypocritical, because I was in the camp of understanding why the New York Giants, for instance, did not pay Saquon Barkley. The difference being Saquon Barkley is a running back, and I feel like that's a more replaceable position to find success in. And a lot of running backs don't get paid. And that was kind of the big reason. Now, he obviously made the New York Giants and me and countless others look stupid because the next year he had the greatest season a running back has ever had, basically, and won a Super Bowl. So, I'm not defending necessarily what I said earlier, but I think a lot of teams would have done what the New York Giants did. Not sure a lot of smart organizations would have done what the Dallas Cowboys just did. And Jerry Jones's track record isn't necessarily the smartest ever. So, judging off this, and you're looking at a Packers organization that really is never bad, never misses the playoffs. I mean, obviously Aaron Rodgers is a big reason for that, but this is a consistent thing. You go from Favre to Rodgers to Jordan Love. They continue to find success and then never really bottom out bad. So those first round picks that they got are probably not going to even be that great. Um, Actually, I could. The only reason they would be great is if someone they stole in the late first round. That's really it would. That's really what it would be. And now the Packers have this newfound momentum with Parsons there. And like I said earlier, it was a position of need for them. And it really just kind of comes up to me that Dallas is going to miss the playoffs this year and Green Bay is going to compete for a Super Bowl. This is what this move does. When you get a generational talent in Micah Parsons, you just add him to your team that won 11 games last year. That's a good thing. It's a must do for the Packers. I'm actually surprised more teams weren't in on it. Maybe Jerry Jones doesn't talk to many teams. Dallas gets a Pro Bowler and defensive tackle Kenny Clark, and you know, sure, he's a defensive tackle, a position of also need for the Dallas Cowboys, but not a generational talent like Micah Parsons. Does Dallas recover from it? I'm gonna I feel pretty good about going against the Cowboys' opinion on this matter, and that the Packers actually know what they're doing and they're making a move that's best for their organization. And yeah, that's really what I come away with from this. I mean, poor Dallas fans, man. You lose Luka Doncic, Micah Parsons in the same year. Luka was obviously more ridiculous and insane. Micah Parsons, you kind of saw this boiling for a month, where the result yesterday isn't shocking, but it is shocking in a way, right? It was shocking, but it wasn't shocking. So that's really what it comes down to, the Micah Parsons deal. I'm so ready for football season. I got my fantasy draft. I had my fantasy draft the other day with House Enterprise, and I'm ready to rock and roll again this year. Reigning champion, so ready to bring it back this year. Very happy with my draft, and can't wait. And we're going to be doing a lot more football shows coming up in the coming weeks and this year. Can't wait. Super excited. But let's talk about the New York Yankees, who ultimately, it's funny. This baseball season, like for me in particular, had a very stale feeling to it. I was excited, but not like as excited as I would be in years past, because obviously the Yankees lost Juan Soto. So it's not really great when you lose a guy, and then the Mets getting Juan Soto, having to watch the Mets with Juan Soto on the team makes it not an enjoyable process whatsoever. So the reality here is that we got two baseball teams that are good baseball teams, but frankly have had egregious stretches of the season. I mean, the New York Mets for 2 months and the Yankees for 2 months in that same kind of time period have just been brutal. And for both teams, it's different. The Yankees, surprisingly, and the people said this coming into the year a little bit, that they rebounded well, and people believe they were a better all around team without Soto. And I kind of had to wait to see that. But I mean, they're kind of right, because the Yankees, obviously losing Soto, a talent like that, saying no to you is devastating just for a fan, especially for the year Soto had last year. Well, Soto hasn't been that great this year compared to his standards. And there's Mets fans that are really upset with him, my girlfriend included. So he's just been underwhelming. Now, it's year one of a 15-year contract. So it's kind of like he'll be fine. Like, I still believe that. I mean, Soto, I think, will still be really good in the playoffs. I think the Mets are going to make the playoffs. And same thing with the Yankees. I think the Yankees are going to make the playoffs. And as bad, if you just didn't look at the records of the teams and just heard the chatter about both teams, you would think both teams would be not playoff teams. But they're going to be playoff teams. And you've definitely heard that from the Yankees angle. I mean, the way people have talked about this team, they're sick of seeing the same things over and over again. I mean, this is Aaron Boone's whateverth year. I mean, what's since 2018. So what's that? Seventh, eighth year, Aaron Boone. Seventh year, Aaron Boone. People are sick of Boone. They're sick of him defending everything. I mean, listen, the players get stripped down naked and defend them for being like, I was hot, they needed to cool off. Like he literally will defend everything. And the most egregious example of this is Anthony Volpe. Anthony Volpe, now in his third season, continues to show inconsistency, but this year in particular shows a complete drop off in the quality of his play. Last year, the first 2 months of Anthony Volpe's season was the best I had ever seen him. And in the playoffs, he was pretty good. So he wasn't really good after the first 2 months of his second year. And then in the playoffs, he was pretty good. So I had hope coming into this season that Volpe would kind of put everything together. It's been the complete opposite. This kid is shot mentally, and it's so obvious. I mean, he made an error last night in the White Sox games, his 18th error. It feels like every time the ball is hit to Anthony Volpe, you're holding your breath that he makes the play. And, the thing is with Volpe is it's not just that his average is low, because let's face it, average isn't what it used to be. But he strikes out way too much. He's not reliable in the field, and the average is low. And he's just a body language cancer at this moment. He's kneeling down, his head is down constantly. And this becomes a Boone Cashman thing at this point because they've defended the kid. They think this is the best way to go about things. They trade for Jose Caballero, a legitimate backup infielder that could give Volpe the competition, light a fire, be like, hey, your job's not 100% safe. But Volpe is hurting this team so much that he needs more than the 2 day benching. And it wasn't even 2 games really because he came in as a defensive substitute, at least in one of them that I can remember. The game that I was at, that's what he came in. He came in as a defensive substitute. In fact, my brother, there was a pigeon that flew right in front of Anthony Volpe, and my brother screamed, my brother's a Red Sox fan, unfortunately, screamed, hey, Volpe, that pigeon plays a better shortstop than you. And our section at Yankee Stadium laughed because Volpe is making, like, for example, I was also at the game versus the Nationals to complete the sweep on Wednesday. Anthony Volpe went 0 for 5 in a game where the Washington Nationals were throwing beach balls to the New York Yankees. Everyone was hitting. They scored 9 runs in the third inning, I believe. And guess what? That inning ended in boos for Anthony Volpe because he struck out in the end of the inning. Volpe, just the confidence. Now, he got 2 hits last night. I'm aware. Okay. But 2 hits against the Chicago White Sox, again, does not make me feel good because if anything, it's Boone and Cash and be like, oh, you could start to put it on. I'm not rooting for the kid to fail. I just don't trust what I'm seeing. And I believe the best thing to do for Volpe, if you want any future with him whatsoever, which, to my opinion, throwing him out there with his confidence like this isn't the best way to go about things. If you have any faith in keeping Volpe as a shortstop, even though most people believe that is unlikely at this point from what you're seeing from him. I mean, I read, it's been mentioned before. I was listening to Sean Morash on WFAN, where he said Anthony Volpe has had the worst 3-week stretch from a position player in Yankee history. This is a kid that people were thinking could be the next Derek Jeter. Forget Derek Jeter. He can't even be Isaiah Kiner Falefa. I mean, this is insane what's happening. And for Boone to keep being like he's elite, he just said, what planet will we send a shortstop of his caliber down? We're not stupid. Listen, I understand Yankee fans can be a very emotional bunch. I mean, this is a team that was in the World Series last year, and you wouldn't even believe it from the conversations that Yankee fans have. Their standard is a lot higher than just getting to the World Series. They got to win it. And even though they went there last year, they did get embarrassed on the national stage in that game 5 defensively. Those same mental mistakes continue to happen, whether it's on the bases, whether it's still defensively, which in my opinion is an organizational accountability issue. It's why people get on Boone, but argument could be made, hey, could be Cashman as well, because even though players are coming in with good defensive, resumes and reputations, they're still coming in and they make boneheaded plays. I mean, I've seen Paul Goldschmidt, who's a Hall of Famer. He's a future Hall of Famer. Make boneheaded plays in the field. I mean, it's pretty crazy. This is a consistent thing that's happening. And it's mind-boggling. It's frustrating. And this Yankee team hasn't shown you any reason to be super confident in them. They just haven't. Now, Jazz Chisholm said, listen, they're going to win the division and they're going to go back to the World Series. Your lips to God's ears. I hope that's the case. I pray it's the case. They beat down the bad teams. In fact, a lot of Yankee teams in the past play down to their competition. The Yankees can't really afford to do that because they can't beat the good teams right now. The Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays, two two teams that are going to be some of their biggest threats in this coming postseason. They can't beat them. They can't beat them. So this is a thing. And listen, when the Yankees are winning, and listening to me right now, you wouldn't believe that they've won five straight. They beat the Red Sox. They beat the They swept the Nationals. They beat Chicago last night. They're probably going to win some more games. Their last month here in September. It's a super easy schedule. You hope that the bats can. I mean, honestly, the issue with the Yankees is not the bats. It's really the pitching. It's the pitching and Anthony Volpe at shortstop. And when I just saw the team, after I went to the game after they lost 12-1, and usually when you lose like that, you kind of wake up a little bit, you play better. I mean, Stanton, I love, he's been great. But here's the thing with that is they decide to bench Anthony Volpe and put Jose Caballero at shortstop. In the first few innings of that game, Caballero gets two plays and he makes them both. And there's no bloop, there's no error. And the Yankees are in a position now where it actually helps them throughout the game. Because if you give up an error and then that gives up a run and then you lose by one, like that matters. So it was refreshing to see balls hit the shortstop that were made. And because of that, listen, you could say I'm reading too much into it, but I'm someone who thinks that probably had an impact in the start of the game, setting a tone, setting a vibe. Listen, we're not going to screw up plays in the field today. And the Yankees won 7-2. To me, that matters. And the Red Sox are a good team. The Yankees, in my opinion, if they just got their heads out their asses, would be a team everybody would be looking at as the favorite in the American League. They're only 4 games back of Toronto and Detroit, the two teams tied for the best record in the American League. How many games this year have we seen Devin Williams blow? How many games this year have we seen Volpe boot balls? How many times have we seen everyday players, not just Volpe, make boneheaded decisions and then they lose the game? The bullpen arms, I mean, the classic example was the first game after the trade deadline where they just melted like that. I mean, how many games has that happened? So the Yankees' talent is there. But I just am not going to trust it until I see them do it in the postseason. And you're not going to have Garrett Cole, who was a big reason why the Yankees went to the World Series last year. You're going to basically hope that Max Fried is the guy that can take you there. Fried's recent playoff resume isn't that great. He had 2 months basically where he wasn't good. And he's kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Not kind of. He's been excellent recently. But pitched well against the Red Sox, pitched well against the Nationals. But high leverage, you got to hope he continues that. And in my opinion, Devin Williams shouldn't be pitching past the 7th inning. So, the Yankees' issues are fixable. But what's frustrating from a Yankee fan perspective is that it feels like they're not fixable because the organization is so stubborn and they will not make the necessary moves. Classic example being IKF. It was clear that he was not a shortstop in the postseason. They wrote it out until it was so painfully obvious that Oswald Peraza was the starting shortstop in the ALCS. That kind of stuff cannot happen. If I were running the team, I would start Jose Caballero until Caballero struggles. Then you have a reason to put Volpe back in the game. Am I losing my mind here? That's really what it should be. And you're getting a great Stanton year. Again, you're getting a great Judge year. I mean, how many great Judge years are you going to get, at least to the elite ability? I mean, he's injured right now, and he still should be the MVP over Cal Raleigh. Don't even get me started on Cal Raleigh. Okay? I don't need to hear that a 240 hitter who hits a lot of home runs is a cat. I don't need that. And the Mariners aren't even better than the Yankees. So give me a break. Aaron Judge is the MVP of the American League. And the only reason why people are throwing him in there is they're sick of Judge winning it. So Judge also needs to hit in the postseason, which is also the biggest. That's honestly was my biggest question mark of the team last year, is Judge not being able to hit in the playoffs. He's got to change that this year. And Stanton looks like he's picked up right where he left off from last postseason. So there's things to optimistically look at the Yankees and be like, okay, this team did have a 7 game lead in the division early in the year. Maybe they can recapture that magic. I think McMahon's a legitimate third base. They're a deeper team. Their pitching is questionable, but their offense has been very, very good. So you're hoping that the Yankees can kind of figure that out. As far as the Volpe thing goes, I'm going to keep an eye on the fact if Volpe's confidence gets better, because if he stinks and keeps stinking, how the hell are they going to convince anybody that he should be starting in the postseason? Because if you ask me, he should be done for the rest of the year until further notice. That's just me. And my advice to Anthony Volpe would be talk to Giancarlo Stanton. Giancarlo Stanton has been at the topic of conversation for a ton of Yankee fans for years. He's basically the reason why Brian Cashman didn't go after Bryce Harper. That's not a Stanton problem. That's a Cashman issue. But Stanton has had good moments. He's had amazing moments, but he's also had bad moments, and he's rebounded. He had his worst year of his career, and at a late age, he's 33, 34 years old when he had the worst year of his career. And then comes back the next season, early in the year in 2024, people were wondering if the Yankees should DFA Giancarlo Stanton. He ends up being the best player on the team in the playoffs. Leads them to the World Series. He's a leader. He's been amazing this year at age 35 years old. So Giancarlo Stanton would be the guy. Obviously, they're very different players, but just from a mentality and getting through adversity, I would hope Volpe would be having some conversations, or maybe Stanton's doing something like that. I'm obviously not in the locker room, so it's easier said than done. It's not like it could just magically happen that way. But that's what I would be doing if I was Anthony Volpe, because here's the reality of the situation. As bad as this year has been for Anthony Volpe, it could all change if he performs. That's what I always defend New York City sports criticism, because people say we're too hard on players. Here's the reality. Yeah, we are hard on players, but if you're good, you may not even have to be that amazing. New York will freaking root like hell for you, and you will be seen as like an icon. I mean, think about all the people that rip Derek Jeter's defense and stuff, and how many Yankee fans will just defend Jeter to the core, right? Or take an example. I mean, another example would be Julius Randle was kind of like another player, kind of a player the other teams didn't really take too seriously. Comes to the Knicks, and that second season, he's a huge Knick fan favorite. Jeremy Lin was a solid role player who played like a star for 3 weeks, and he still looked at as a New York staple or a Knicks staple in their history. Like, if you play well, it's Giancarlo Stanton. The narrative's completely changed on him. There was a ton of people who were not fans of Stanton until last postseason. If you perform, things and the narrative will change. If Anthony Volpe has a really good postseason and the Yankees make it to the World Series and he's a part of that, hopefully even win one, everything goes away. And we've seen Volpe play good in the playoffs before, so it's not impossible. So that's what I would be saying. Instead of just constantly patting him on the back, giving him a cheer. I mean, you got to hold him accountable at some point for these errors. This is insane. And he just looks shot. You feel bad for the kid at one point. So if you're getting on me, or, getting on other people for bringing him down, all he has to do is perform better. And things go away. These problems go away. If he has a week, in the next week, if he ends up being a huge clutch at bat, or if he's making plays in the field and he's balling, people are going to stop calling him this stuff. They're going to stop being so hard on him. That's New York for you. So, I have my thoughts on the Yankees. We're going to get, as we get closer to October, I'm going to go into even more on what I feel about them. But the Yankees basically have an Anthony Volpe problem, and it's really a shortstop problem, and it so easily could be fixed because they have backups to remove the problem. But I don't trust Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman to make the right decision, if I'm being completely honest. I think they're going to keep throwing Volpe in the fire. I think they're going to continue to pitch Devin Williams past in high leverage moments, and it's going to drive me nuts. So I hope that's not the case, but this is the New York Yankees, and they always seem to be the last team to know things. So that's going to do it for the JB podcast today. Obviously, big news in the NFL. Can't wait to talk more football and October baseball coming up soon. Can't wait to talk about that. So I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.